Hey everybody, it's Jason Blah here. Now that my three obligatory videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's flip in a video by the wise one, Kinobody. Alright guys, you saw what happened there. And it's interesting, there's a whole argument right there on his Instagram, a lot of stuff going back and forth. I'm going to address that. And here's the thing, guys. Not everything that Kinobody says is actually wrong. And I feel that, again, when I'm going to be critical of people, because I am critical of people, credit needs to be given where credit is due. All right? And I think I'm trying to do a lot more of that these days. To say, okay, I might disagree with some people and some stuff and think they're stupid, they're morons, whatever else, for certain things they're saying, displaying, teaching. But it doesn't mean that they're completely wrong on everything. Let's be honest here. Greg, whose real name is Alan is actually pretty strong at pressing. In general, he's got solid pressing strength, all right? I'm not going to detract from that. I'm not going to say the guy doesn't have a pretty strong bench, pretty strong incline, even pretty strong standing press. He's actually a pretty good presser, particularly in terms of things like relative strength. But keep in mind, guys, relative strength on upper body lifts is easier if you stay real lean and you don't train your legs. Because obviously 10 pounds of muscle on your legs is going to weigh you down. It's going to change your relative strength, obviously, without contributing to those upper body lifts. So those are factors. But that aside, his pressing is strong even if he was 20 pounds heavier. Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to deny that. He's a pretty strong presser. The problem is what he teaches and the fact that he's going to get people hurt and himself hurt. Now, when we start talking about the flat bench and the incline and things like that, chest presses in general, a lot of people are jumping in his comments saying everybody's being form Nazis. You know, that's a fairly safe lift. It actually really isn't. And when it comes to being a form Nazi, there's a difference between being petty about it and actually saying, hey man, this is an exercise that has killed more people than any other exercise. Barbell bench pressing in general has the highest death rate of any lift. Hands down. It has killed dramatically more people. It's actually more people have died bench pressing than all other lifts put together. In terms of injury rates, the number of orthopedic surgeons who are buying yachts and Lamborghinis on fixing people's shoulders who have hurt themselves bench pressing, there's a lot of them. When you start talking to guys my age, I'm 41, a lot of guys I know who are in their 30s and 40s, when I chat with them, oh, I used to lift till I hurt my shoulder and I've got a damaged rotator cuff, right? It's just real stuff. It would be different if people weren't actually getting hurt at an enormous rate. If there weren't 10,000 people in the United States alone who had damaged shoulders, who either had to quit lifting or who had to have surgery in their shoulders because of poor pressing technique, then we wouldn't really need to have this discussion. We could argue that's just being a form Nazi. But when you see people deliberately doing stuff that has caused enormous numbers of injuries, plenty of documented injuries, that again is paying for the yachts and Lamborghinis of orthopedic surgeons, it's kind of time to step in and say, okay, this is a problem. All right, and again, I want to reiterate, I'm not saying he's weak on pressing. All right, I'm not making that claim. I'm not going to detract from his strength in any way. And I'll even say that I do appreciate the fact that he does tell these guys who want a more developed aesthetic upper body, focus on the incline bench, the standing press, weighted pull-ups, weighted chin-ups. I think that's fantastic advice. You know, I can't disagree with that advice at all. In fact, I think that's really good advice. In fact, when he says get really strong on those lifts, yeah, that's actually good advice. That's damn good advice. Probably the most intelligent thing he's ever said. So, no problem there. But here's where we're going to run into the problems. Internal rotation of the shoulder. Because here's the thing. He's saying, look, oh, fast eccentrics are fine. You don't want to lift slow if you want to get strong. I agree. Slow training has no place in strength training. Training slow produces inferior muscle growth many times in some cases, and it absolutely produces inferior strength. No argument from me. The problem is the way he performs eccentrics reverses it while using internal rotation of the shoulder. He is eventually, I don't know how he's gotten this lucky this long, that he hasn't damaged the rotator cuff and had to stop pressing completely, or hasn't torn it back. And it has to do with the flaring of the elbows and the bar path. And then he's saying you don't need to touch your chest. Here's your problem. We can make the argument all day long. Certain people say, well, certain people anatomically, due to whatever, can't touch their chest safely, because they have long arms, a shallow rib cage, whatever. How do you plan on stopping the weight then? In other words, if you are anatomically built in such a way that you could get hurt by touching your chest, I'll take that argument. We'll take that argument. That in theory, hypothetically, some people are built in such a way. What's going to stop the weight from hitting your chest one day? And because you've trained in such a way to where you're stopping short of the chest all the time, you are reducing mobility. You are increasing your chances of a pec tear or damaging your shoulder joint in some way if you ever do accidentally touch the chest with a heavy weight, because you're stopping an inch short all the time. You haven't built the mobility in that range of motion and the strength in that range of motion. You're predisposing yourself to tears. How are you going to stop the weight from coming down accidentally one day? A really heavy weight. In other words, anyone who says that, my question is, what sort of limiting device have you put in the way to stop the bar from touching your chest? If you honestly and truly believe that you are built in such a manner, you need to have that, say you got to stop 2 inches short of your chest, you better have an object sitting on your chest that is 2 inches thick to stop the bar. And I don't mean pins. Pins will beat your joints up. You want to talk about getting hurt? Press off pins every time you press. Hit pins. Then you're going to find out what real damage is. Powerlifters learned this the hard way a long time ago. You don't bang against pins repeatedly. It will bust your joints up faster than anything you could possibly do in the gym. So, this is why board presses exist, carpet presses exist, so that you can put objects in the way. The problem he has, also, that flaring of the elbows, keeping it even high up here. Just like on the chest, you don't bench above the nipple. And I know people say, well, that's not true. That's everyone's anatomy is slightly different. Yeah, but that's a good baseline rule to avoid internal rotation of the shoulder. In other words, if you're tucked your elbows enough that you press below the nipple on a bench press, you will remove the internal rotation of the shoulder. We could argue whether you're going to get your best leverages all day long or not, but at least you want to internally rotate the shoulder. Same thing on the incline. You start benching all the way near your neck, you're having the elbows flare at the bottom. All right, you're all the way up like this. They need to be down. So in other words, on an incline bench, bars coming here, it's still going to be above the nipple. It's going to hit right there, right? But you need to be doing that. And because he's got the elbows flared, there's internal rotation of the shoulder. All right, that predisposes the rotator cuffs to damaging those. And once you damage those, you very well might need a surgery again before you can press without pain. And before you can even have full proper use of your shoulder. Forget throwing a baseball again or anything like that till you get that fixed, assuming you ever can again. But the point there is, he dive bombs, and he doesn't even settle the bar. He just dive bombs immediately out of the J-hooks. Again, that's a whole nother issue. That's considered to be dangerous form by every coach in the world. You will get the shit slapped out of you for doing that in certain gyms. And it's for your own good. He doesn't even know how to press. That's his problem. He's built strength and has never learned how to actually perform the movements correctly. That's a scary thing. So what he does almost what we would call ballistic benching, where he drops in a fast eccentric and reverses an inch off the chest. Yeah, that will create a myotatic reflex. Yes, that's a good way to lift more weight. It works. The problem, again, he's reversing it the last second with an explosive eccentric, and that's fine. If you can do an explosive eccentric and come down and press, more power to you. Not everyone can do that. Some people can, and a lot of really good benchers can do so. That's not a problem. The problem is that he's doing a super fast eccentric and a ballistic bench with internal rotation of the shoulders. The chances of tearing a rotator cuff with that quick return, that reverse and return with the internal rotation of the shoulder is predisposing him to injury, and it's going to hurt him, and he's teaching his people who follow him bad technique that's going to get them hurt. There is no benefit to what he is doing. It carries only risk. Carries only risk. And that is the point. That's not being a form Nazi. That's actually taking a very known, very well understood problem with this exercise, one of the most dangerous ways to perform it, understood in exercise science, documented by orthopedic surgeons and everyone else who have to fix the damage all the time that this causes, saying, hey, why are you doing this? This is dangerous. And it would be different if only 100 people had ever been hurt doing this exercise this way, right? It would be different if the flaring of the elbows and the internal rotation of the shoulders had only hurt 50 or 100 people. We wouldn't care, right? No one would give a shit. I wouldn't. If only 100 people ever been hurt, that's not statistically significant. It's thousands. It's thousands. And I know plenty of guys who got hurt bench pressing who were like, oh, I can't train anymore because I hurt my shoulder bench pressing and it hurts all the time. It's been hurting me since I was 28, and they're like 35 now. They don't train anymore. Do you really want to be one of those guys? Because I can tell you guys right now, Alan is going to be one of those guys eventually. He will. Because he doesn't listen. And I know because he comes over and he's commented my videos, argued before, tried to call me weak, whatever. He watches my stuff. I've told him this repeatedly. He could go look it up himself if he had any common sense and any basic intellect and any ability to reason or read. He could go read physiology texts and stuff written by surgeons and everything else and realize what he's doing is going to hurt him eventually. And he'd quit doing it. He just isn't smart enough to do it, apparently. And it's that simple. And that's the problem. You have someone who isn't intelligent enough to do some basic research and due diligence when they're being told repeatedly this causes an enormous amount of injuries, won't listen, and just continues to teach it. In other words, that shows that he actually really isn't very smart at all. And yet here he is selling programs and teaching hundreds of thousands of people how to train when he isn't intelligent enough to do some basic research to figure out how to train safely and correctly on the basic lifts he teaches. This is a problem. It's a problem. It's dangerous. It's reckless. And, quite frankly, the fact that he's teaching it that way, I almost wonder if people who do get hurt, his followers, basically sue him eventually when they get hurt. Because he's teaching something that isn't just like an opinion. It is extremely well documented and understood to cause damage that requires surgeries. And there's actually no reason to have to do it. So it's basically gross negligence. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.